So here's an FAQ that's not really an FAQ because no one's ever asked me this question. But today I was reading, doing my chapter reads like you can find over in the playlist, The Unsuspecting Mage. And I was reading chapter 24. And in that chapter, James and Michael are in this tavern in the City of Light. And it was near the end of the chapter. And while I was reading and they were sitting there, he was looking out of the street, Empire's almost there. They found out what they got to do, and they're about ready to get out. And he's watching this girl, or this, I think it was a little boy, running around, maybe a little girl, I forget, running around and causing problems, having a good time. Mom's trying to get her, and she just thinks it's a game. And I got thinking, well, what if Scar and Potbelly just passed by right then, right? And because they weren't even in existence when I wrote this. Because they didn't come into being until like midway through book 2, when I was writing about the slave markets of Khorasan, where Jerome was there trying to get his sister, and where James fought the Pavarti. Well, anyway, so I got to thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool, for people who reread it to say, oh, there they are, right? Scar and Potbelly are there. Scar's probably saying, we need to get the hell out of here. Potbelly's going, well, we can't get, this is our city. This is our hometown. We have got to stay here. We have got to defend our people. And Scar's going like, that's crazy. We're going to follow this to get out of here. And I got to thinking about it. And I'm really thinking about writing, including like a couple paragraphs, just a little bitty thing, them walking past, arguing about it. Maybe Shorty show up. And just add that to the Unsuspecting Mage. Well, anyway, the question that arose from that is, how did they get captured? How did they survive to get to become slaves? How did they make it all the way to Khorasan without escaping or causing other problems? And how did they manage to get on top of those, on the slave block, for James to buy them? I mean, it made a good story, at the time when I wrote it. It made a really good addition, because they got awesome fighters to join their cause, and James and Jerome weren't alone, and so forth. And I just got to thinking, well, how would Scar and Potbelly get captured at the fall of, because they would not have gone quietly into that gentle night. They would have stood back to back until they were dead before they got captured. I can't imagine them ever giving up. So how did they become slaves and sold in the slave market of Khorasan? And all the other pit fighters that were sold too. Because Shorty was there. I have to look it up as to who else was there. But a lot of slaves were there. And how did Jerome gets separated from his sister Tersa? If you're an awesome fighter and your sister is alone in a city that's being besieged, wouldn't you be with her? So why wasn't he with her? Because she got captured, and that was the whole reason, and that was part of the reason why they went south, was to get her as well as Michael. So how did Jerome and Tanakh get stuck in that underground hideout with, I think it was Delia and Cassie, I believe, right? It's been so long. You guys probably know it better than I do. Anyway, so how did they get down there? And why wasn't his sister with them? And if they were pit fighters, why weren't they with the other pit fighters? Wouldn't you think that the pit fighters would have gone together and been one massive force that would just waded through them and shot through and got their freedom? Because the pit fighters are badass fighters. So how do they get captured? And how do they get captured unhurt? You would think that they would be mortally wounded or having lost a limb or something like that in order to take them down. But no, not a scratch on them. So how did Scar and Potbelly get captured? Got to think on that one. I don't really have an answer to it at the moment. May have to write a short story at some point to flesh that out, just if no other reason than for my own satisfaction. Because the way I built them up over the course of 10 books, well, 9 books, they weren't in the first one, over the course of 9 books, they're not someone who would have been captured easily or readily or given up or anything like that. So how do they get captured? Curious question. Curious question. I have a couple thoughts in my head, but some of it's just too easy. You know, like Michael, you know, at the fall, you know, in about 2 chapters from where, or the epilogue, when Michael's running around trying to find James because they got separated in the battle, and you know, Michael sees these people. Hey, come here, come on, and he runs in there and they're slavers, and he gets captured. You know, maybe. But I think as soon as Scar and Potbelly went through that door and saw them, they would have just launched into a battle and killed them all. That's what I think. And more than likely, they wouldn't have been by themselves. They probably would have been with other pit fighters, you know, because there's strength in numbers. So how did they get captured? Right now, I can't really think of it. I mean, it has to be overwhelming force, probably with massive crossbows, or I don't know. Maybe they tied one on, was drunk, and they were just captured in their bed. No, that would be funny. Yeah, that would be funny. If the night before they went out on a bender, winching, got totally plastered, and then while they were passed out, the city fell, and they just captured them in their bed. Now, that would be funny. Suppose that's how Jim Bowie died at the Alamo. He was too sick, he couldn't get out of bed, and they just killed him in his bed. That's a thought. That's a thought. And that would be funny, too. And that would be one of those tales that they would tell about how a bunch of women got them, you know, how a bunch of women are having a good time with women got them on the slave market, on the slave blocks at Khorasan. That could be one of their tall tales. That's a thought. That's a thought. So, But, you know, everybody else, they wouldn't have done it. And Potbelly probably wouldn't have had the bender. Potbelly probably would have been more sensible. But who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Potbelly's been known to party at times, too. Well, I'm going to mull it over for a while. Who knows if I'll ever do anything with it. But if I come up with a definitive answer, I'll tell you. How did they get captured? I don't know. But I am going to put that thing in the end of 24 and have them have Potbelly and Scar walk by just for a cameo. I think that'd be fun. I mean, I suppose I could do Kip too, but he's a bit young. He'd be a you know, I was like 5-6 years earlier than Travell. So he would have been, what, 14? Oh, no, not 14. He would have been 8, 9, maybe 10 at that time. So he's just a little bit younger than Michael is at the moment. Yeah. Well, anyway, some thoughts I had. I thought I'd share. And take care. Oh, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you. Comment, share. Anything you know, more the merrier.